Complex. Hey, y'all, welcome back. Today we're checking out the complex reason 100 million pound notes exist. What?
This video is sponsored by Audible. Get your first audiobook of your choice for free by signing up at audible.com/sidenote or texting Sidenote to 500-500. This
Y'all be sure to go to Sidenote, like, and subscribe.
boring banknote may look like it's from the 18th century. 500-500. This boring banknote may look like it's from the 18th century, and I wouldn't fault you for thinking that. But believe it or not only is it from the 21st century, but it's also perfectly legal tender. It's called Titan, and it is a 100% real 100 million pound banknote.
Hang on, I gotta zoom in on this. What? Bank of England, 100 million pounds. Wow. Who's walking around carrying these in their wallet?
Yep, that is a 1 followed by 8 zeros. Its cousin, the Giant, is a 1 million pound banknote and is also legitimate, issued by the Bank of England, just like any other pound sterling banknotes you're familiar with. You might think the number of zeros in these notes is ridiculous, but they aren't even the largest denominator of bills seen in a country. This is Zimbabwe's $100 trillion note, equivalent of a whopping 40 US cents, and here is a 100 trillion mark from war-torn Germany, equivalent to some 20 US dollars at that time. Hungary, Argentina, Yugoslavia, and Venezuela have had their big notes at different points in history. These banknotes are a result of financial crisis and hyperinflation, and although these bills have absurd values, many are basically worthless, and those that do have value are worth nowhere near as much as the number on the paper. There are endless reasons why a country would be pushed into hyperinflation, and we won't discuss them here, but often when corrupt governments make bad financial decisions and banks irresponsibly start to print more money than is sensible, existing bills depreciate, sometimes until they lose all their worth.
It's happening to us right now.
Such notes are useless and almost nothing more than a fine piece of paper. So it might come as a surprise that the United Kingdom also has its own mega banknote. Britain hasn't had any serious inflation in ages. In general, pound sterling is
Wait a minute. Does Britain have a bull statue too? Hang on. This is off subject, but you know, when they show New York, they always show that bull on Wall Street. Does Britain have a bull too? Yes, Britain has several bull statues, including a large bronze one called the Guardian in Birmingham that is a famous landmark. Other notable bull statues, Wow. It's a symbol of the city of Birmingham. I didn't know that.
Inflation in also has its own mega banknote. Britain hasn't had any serious inflation in ages. In general, pound sterling is a stable currency, meaning the 1 million pound Giant and the 100 million pound Titan are literally worth what they say they are.
What?
While they're legal tender, the concept is bewildering.
Yeah.
Who would need a 1 million pound banknote in a digitized world where most transactions happen over computers?
It feels dangerous too. If I had $100 million and it was condensed down to one piece of paper, I don't know if I could stop vomiting from panic attacks. Like oh my God.
And if that's true, then why do these notes even exist? Turns out that the answer is not quite what you'd expect. The Bank of England is the central bank of the United Kingdom, and it has a monopoly on the issue of notes for England and Wales. No other bank in England and Wales is allowed to print money, but this wasn't always the case. Until the middle of the 19th century, printing banknotes was considered the norm, as most of the UK's privately owned banks, big or small, issued their own bills of different colors, sizes, and featured personalities, depending on their local history.
That seems like a problem. Privately owned banks, big or small, issued their own bills of different colors. Yeah, it'd be hard to guard against counterfeit, wouldn't it?
Colors, sizes, and featured personalities, depending on their local history. They were backed up by actual assets, usually gold, to maintain the confidence of the people in the notes. However, over time, banks weren't all doing it responsibly, and were not able to back up the notes with actual assets, especially in times when the country faced a shortage of gold.
Okay, but we don't do that anymore. I wonder why it was a problem back then, right? We don't have the gold standard anymore.
When a series of banks collapsed in England and their issued banknotes created chaos amongst people, the government realized it needed to restrict the note-issuing powers of the banks.
Okay.
Through various banking acts along the way, and finally by the Bank Charter Act of 1844, Parliament gave exclusive note-issuing powers to the Central Bank of England.
This seems smart. This is really smart. By the way, I gotta say, looking at the map of Britain on the side is kind of messing with my brain. It's just weird. It looks like a whole different world, doesn't it?
The English pound sterling issued by the bank holds the portrait of the British monarch and are the most popular pound sterling notes in the UK.
Okay.
The Queen has appeared so many times on so many banknotes in the last 85 years that you can actually make a progressive timeline of her life.
Oh, wow.
Credit goes to Lemino for this animation.
Oh, wow. Let's see that again. That's kind of fascinating. I just thought they used the same portrait over and over, but I guess that would be stupid because it started with her as a tiny little girl. This little girl was on the money. 29, 32, 35, 39. Oh, 43, around 50. Oh, 52. Oh, yeah, the hair. 58. Oh, she looks younger now. They darkened her hair. Now she looks... We're back to 38. Oh, here we go. 60. Oh, 62. 65. 70. 72. 73. 74. 78. Oh, 80. 85. Oh, she's rather handsome looking in this one. Say 87. How old did she live, by the way? 96. Wow. Way to go, Liz.
In Scotland and Northern Ireland, the case was different. Their banks were relatively more responsible and were harmed much less in financial crisis over the years, so they argued there was no need for them to restrict their rights of printing their own money.
I have heard there's a Scottish dollar. I've heard that recently.
Which they believed was part of their cultural identity. This guy, named Walter Scott, a popular novelist and poet in Scotland, adopted the transparent persona of one of his characters and wrote letters and pamphlets to launch a caustic attack on the government proposal. Public meetings were held throughout the country to tell people that the Scottish banking system was doing just fine and the new banking measures would prove to be disastrous for them. It was unjust to punish the Scottish banks for the misdeeds of their English neighbors.
He has a great point. Very good point, Mr. Scott, sir.
As a result of the vigorous campaign, Parliament made exceptions for the region. Private banks in Scotland and Northern Ireland got to keep their note-issuing powers, and Walter Scott got featured on some of the Scottish notes.
What? Way to go!
That sounds like a win, except now the government required these private banks to back up their paper money with an equivalent amount of Bank of England notes as security to avoid overprinting.
Huh. So the Scottish banks, if they want to print, for example, $100, they have to get $100 from the Bank of England and put that in a safe somewhere? How do they pay for that? I don't know.
For every pound in currency these banks produced, another pound was deposited into the Bank of England for safekeeping. This means that in the event of one of these Scottish or Northern Ireland banks collapsing and their pound notes falling out of circulation, the same value of money was secured in the Bank of England. Thus, holders of the uncommon pound notes had security that their bills were still worth their real value because the Bank of England was holding their money in English pound notes.
That feels fishy. Something about that doesn't add up. Tell me how that works again. In the event of one of these Scottish or Northern Irish banks collapsing and their pound notes falling out of circulation. Wait, back up.
For every pound in currency these banks produced, another pound was deposited into the Bank of England for safekeeping.
So, if they wanted to make £100, they had to actually make £200 and put half of that in the Bank of England. But that's the Scottish dollar. How do they get the English pound? Sorry, I've been calling it the Scottish dollar. It's the Scottish pound. Sorry.
This means that in the event of one of these Scottish or Northern Ireland banks collapsing and their pound notes falling out of circulation, the same value of money was secured in the Bank of England.
But why would the Bank of England not spend that? Like, why? You just trust them to just leave it untouched?
Thus, holders of the uncommon pound notes had security that their bills were still worth their real value.
That seems fishy.
Because the Bank of England was holding their money in English pound notes. Now, printing billions of pounds worth of notes and then holding this money as backup for centuries was a problem for the Bank of England, and in order to reduce the vault space used, they had a solution: compress an enormous value into just a few banknotes. These bills are the Titan and Giant, worth 100 million and 1 million pounds respectively. Unlike smaller values of notes, Titans and Giants are printed internally and locked in maximum security, which explains their primitive design.
Okay, so it's to save storage space. Still, 100 million pounds seems like a lot in one piece of paper. It feels like it should be like maybe 100,000 pound note, right?
Unlike the typical pound note or a dollar bill, Titans are printed on A4 paper and Giants are printed on A5 paper. Titans require signing by the chief cashier before they can become legal tender. Totaling over 8 billion pounds, more than 4,000 Titans and Giants have been printed by the Bank of England. Titans and Giants are not in circulation for obvious reasons. No cash machine will ever dispense a 1 million or 100 million pound note, unless in the case of hyperinflation like that of Germany after World War I.
Oh God, I hope that doesn't.
However complicated it may sound, this system has allowed Scotland and Northern Ireland to have their own banknotes in fantastic colors and designs, which represent their culture and pay respect to their personalities.
Cool.
After various consolidation and rebranding, currently there are 3 banks in Scotland and 4 in Northern Ireland that issue their paper money. They are the only ones in the UK that do not feature the Queen. In 2015, Scotland's Clydesdale Bank was the first to issue a polymer note in Great Britain. Ulster Bank from Northern Ireland recently issued the first vertical banknote in the country. These attractive, colorful notes also act as a marketing tool for banks, since the bearer is often reminded of these banks, and it's a major reason why banks don't want to give up their rights of printing money.
Okay.
All is not well, though. Scottish and Northern Irish banknotes have been subject to much controversy and confusion amongst English people. Like I said before, these bills are legit and authorized by the UK Parliament, which means they are accepted in all banks and post offices across the UK. They are widely used for day-to-day transactions of goods and services in their respective regions, and also in England and Wales to some extent. However, technically speaking, they're not considered legal tender according to the law.
Really?
Legal tender is a technical term with little practical meaning and should not be confused with the legal or authorized nature of a banknote. Not being legal tender means that a person can refuse to take these notes to settle a debt issue, and he or she cannot be taken to courts. But as long as the buyers and sellers agree to use these banknotes for day-to-day transactions, there are no issues. Ignorance.
So like a little English shopkeeper could deny a Scottish pound, I guess, right?
For day-to-day transactions, there are no issues. Ignorance and misinformation have led many businesses in England and Wales to believe that Scottish banknotes are less valuable than English ones, so they look at them suspiciously. A survey conducted amongst Scottish people in 2014 found that 70% of Scots have had their cash payments rejected in England.
Wow.
50% of them were told that their money wasn't legal tender. Another survey conducted amongst English people...
Whoa, it looks forged, I could lose my job, it's not worth the hassle, and even that it looks like Monopoly money.
Wow. That their money wasn't legal tender. Another survey conducted amongst English people in 2019 found that 76% were unable to identify where the Scottish currency was from, while 33% believed the notes to be counterfeit or fake. Many thought they looked like Monopoly money. All of this causes much embarrassment and irritation to Scottish people when their paper money is rejected in England. Several MPs from Scotland have raised objections against this discrimination of Scottish paper money in the past decades.
If that money is backed up by the Bank of England, then it should be accepted like money from the Bank of England, right? That's fishy too. It should be legal tender, like he's saying. It should be.
The proposed bill to legally compel businesses in England to accept Scottish banknotes was rejected in 2009 and again in 2019. Many argue that Scottish and Northern Irish banks should just use the same printed currency as England to avoid confusion. In the fight between banknotes, these regional banks seem to be losing the battle. Last year, one of the 4 banks in Northern Ireland announced that they would gradually stop issuing their own banknotes and would switch to dispensing Bank of England notes from their ATM network.
Interesting.
Another Northern Irish bank has withdrawn their 50 and 100 pound notes and now issue a Bank of England 50 instead. If more banks follow this way, the giants and titans may not be needed to back up the value of uncommon notes anymore. For now, the titans and giants live on and lay claim to a great deal of fame. One £1 million note was sold for £69,000 at a specialist sale in London a decade ago, even though it is, in practical sense, just a piece of paper. And that's the small but curious tale of Britain's 100...
So I guess, how did they void it? They must have voided it. They must have put a big stamp on it that said void, or something. How'd they do that?
And that's the small but curious tale of Britain's £100 million banknotes. If you like the video, I highly recommend the story The £1 Million Banknote by the famous Mark Twain. It's available on Audible, and you can get the audiobook for free if you use the link in the description. Audible is home to thousands of select audiobooks, podcasts, Audible originals, guided fit.
Y'all be sure to go to Sidenote, like and subscribe. And I bet there's an Audible code if you're into Audible. Audible.com/sidenote. Man, it makes sense why there's £100 million note now, or several, 4,000 of them apparently. They're making it kind of easy for the burglars to get a bunch of cash. But I guess if you go into the bank and you steal those Titan notes, you can't spend it anywhere. I don't know which side of the argument I fall on this, because if the Bank of England requires those other banks to use their notes, the Bank of England notes, everyone's putting their eggs all in one basket, which could be dangerous, but not really. I don't know. But those Scottish and Northern Ireland banks, I guess they get promotion from their names being on the notes. I don't know where I stand on this. I could sort of see both sides of it. What if Scotland leaves the United Kingdom? Where are they getting that money? There's still something that seems really fishy about it. I don't know. There's something kind of like two-sided about the Bank of England saying, okay, you can print your own money, but you gotta have that equivalent amount in our bank, but then not enforcing businesses to support that money. Right? I don't know. I'm torn. Anyway, this was interesting, fascinating. £100 million. Would be nice to have. Well, y'all, I'd like to thank my patrons. I'd like to thank my Buy Me a Coffee folks. Thank y'all for watching this with me. Be sure to go to Sidenote, like, and subscribe, and I'll see y'all next time. Later.